Hello everybody, this is the first of a series of videos I'm doing on paper 1 question 5, which is section B of the paper, and it's the section where you get 40 marks for answering a writing question. So the reading section's already done, and this is the one writing question that you have to do on paper 1. So as I just said, it's worth 40 marks, which is half of the marks on the paper. So it's really important that we spend time revising the skills that you need in order to achieve really high marks. So you get 24 marks for the content and how you organise your answer, and you get 16 marks for how it's written. So teachers would say it's your SPAG marks, so your spelling, punctuation and grammar, okay? So what the examiner's looking for is for you to write an imaginative piece, okay, which fits the form. So for when it says form, it means either a news article, blog, it could be a letter, it could be a speech. So they will always direct you within the question to what form they want it to be. And also they want you to write for a specific audience, and they will tell you that too. Okay, so you need to make sure that you organise your information and ideas using effective structural and grammatical features such as paragraphing. Okay, and you also need to use a range of different words, vocabulary and sentence structures in order to achieve those top marks. Okay, so in order to get level 4, which is the top level you can achieve, you need to make sure that your register is convincing, and when it says that, what it means is you need to write in a formal manner if it asks you to write in a formal manner, okay? You need to make sure that your piece of writing is suitable for the audience that they've specified. So if it's for a blog for a teenage website, then you need to make sure it's written using vocabulary that is suitable for a teenage audience. And likewise, if it's to an MP or a counsellor, then obviously your vocabulary and the way that you write it, your tone of writing is going to be very different, okay? So you need to make sure that it is matched to the purpose and audience that you've been given. You need to use ambitious vocabulary, and you need to use a range of linguistic devices. So that means you read my rules or DeForest techniques, okay? And I have a separate video on my channel which goes through those. You need to make sure that you use paragraphs effectively, and you need to use discourse markers too, okay? So all of these things are really important in order to achieve that top level 4 band really, okay? So that's your content. And then for your SPAG marks, again, it's making sure that you use a variety of sentence structures, but also using your sentence structures and your punctuation correctly, okay? So making sure that you use ambitious vocabulary, making sure that you use complex sentences as well as compound and simple sentences, but making sure that they are used accurately, okay? And again, I have videos on those which you can work through. So the lowdown in question 5 is this really. You'll be given a choice of 2 questions, and you must answer one of the 2 within the time specified. So you'll be asked to write either a narrative, which is a story, or a descriptive piece based on an image or a theme linked to the picture. Now, you might be given 2 narrative questions or 2 descriptive questions, or one of each type. So we're not sure this year what that question's going to be, whether you're going to be given the 2 narrative, 2 descriptive or one of each type. So my advice is to revise how to answer both types, okay? It's 45 minutes you're given for this question, so I would advise that you spend 5 minutes planning, 30 minutes writing and 5 minutes checking your answer, making sure that you do leave time for planning and checking. Some students don't like to do this, and they just like to go in and spend the full-time full-time writing rather. However, studies have shown that students that spend time planning and checking their work do achieve higher marks. So it's really important that you do plan and check your answer. Now you must aim to structure your writing in an interesting way. And I'm going to do a video on different narrative structures which will help you, and I'm also going to go through how you could structure a writing to describe piece 2. You need to make sure that you use read my rules and figurative language. Figurative language is most important with writing to describe and making sure that you use your 5 senses. And your read my rules techniques, key when it comes to narrative, okay? So read my rules and figurative language, which do feature within the read my rules, are most important. You need to use a variety of sentence structures and ambitious vocabulary. Remember that this is worth 40 marks on this paper, which is half of the marks. So it's well worth spending a decent length of time on it and not rushing it. Okay, so some example questions which I've taken from the exam board themselves are this one. So you were given a dark park at night, so it was a dark night and you had to write a story based on this image. Or you had to write a story about a game that goes badly wrong. So again, that was 2 narrative pieces. There was this one where you had to write a description suggested by the picture. And then the written word theme was describe an occasion when you felt unsure or challenged, okay? So again, that one is 2 descriptions. So the next one I'm going to show you is where they gave an example of a description and a narrative, okay? So it was write a description suggested by this picture. And then the narrative was write the opening part of a story about a place that is severely affected by the weather. So you'll notice that the second one is thematically linked to the picture. So what's the difference between description and narration? Because there is a key difference. Well, descriptive writing, you must describe to your reader what you can see, hear, taste, touch and smell. So you must really focus on the 5 senses. Your readers should be able to imagine themselves in that location, okay? We often describe it as you being a video camera and literally reporting back to your audience what you can see, hear, taste, touch and smell in that location that you've been given. So it's really working on bringing that image to life. It's a visualization. Narrative writing, however, is writing a story, okay? So it must have a plot, character setting and perhaps some dialogue, okay? So narration is the act of giving an account and it is creative writing. So you've got 2 very distinct types of writing there, okay? So you need to make sure that whichever question you decide to answer, you make sure that it's either descriptive or narrative writing, depending on what the question says. Okay, so that's the end of my first video on question 5. Make sure you stay tuned for further videos, subscribe to the channel and you can follow me on Twitter at AQA Exams. And there are loads of free downloads on my website, acaexams.wordpress.com. Thanks for listening.